In a lot of ways, Christianity is to black folks what cheese is to would-be vegans. Wait. So now it gives the energy of, we shall overcome. Maybe? The relationships, beliefs, and infrastructure formed out of necessity and survival mode in the short term are the very things that will keep you there permanently. Return all of it to sender. Right TF now. Bonjour folks, I'm Sass. I work with sound as a tool for identity, documentation, and storytelling. For over a decade, I've done sound for film and podcasts, and I create custom soundscapes for journaling, healing, and embodiment through my sonic wellness platform, Home Frequency. This series is about sound and listening, not as background, but as forces that shape who we are, how we remember, and which stories are amplified or silenced. From oral histories in music, to recorded archives, to the soundtracks and soundscapes of our everyday lives. Welcome to the Sound Continuum. Bonjour and welcome to episode 2 of the Sound Continuum. Since this video is going live in February 2026, I wanted to wish my American and Canadian viewers a happy Black History Month. In case you didn't know, this year marks the 100th anniversary of Negro History Week, which was established by historian and author Carter G. Woodson to promote the study of Black American history in schools. That week laid the foundation for what is now the month-long celebration of Black History Month. And while Black History Month is celebrated in the US and Canada, today's topic, architecting liberation, has relevance across the diaspora. This topic was actually inspired from a quote from Carter G. Woodson that has lived rent-free in my head since I read his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, over a decade ago now. And that quote is, "If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told, and if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one." End quote. We'll return to this later in the video, but first, we need to get to the root of the matter. Woodson's quote ties into the larger theme of resonant roots, which we're celebrating within my Home Frequency community. This month we're exploring the sonic identity of Blackness by deconstructing Black voices, language, songs, and music over time to understand the evolving narrative of the Black experience, particularly in the United States. And with everything going on in the world, politically, socially, economically, and the discourse around it, this video will examine how today's discourse is shaped by past narratives, and hopefully it will leave you with some food for thought and inspiration for how to reauthor the narrative of the future. There are 2 videos that popped up in my Clock app feed that inspired me to tackle today's topic, because I think no matter where you grew up in the diaspora, due to European colonization, Christianity was most likely a defining part of your childhood, voluntarily or involuntarily, for better or for worse. The creators of these videos, which I will share with you in a couple of seconds, talked about the subliminal messaging of gospel music and why it does more harm than good. And as someone who studies how sound can be used to shape identity, emotions, and culture, I was intrigued to hear their arguments.
I want to let you know that you ain't When I read this, it took me down a rabbit hole. Gospel music is emotionally charged and can feel uplifting, but when you strip away the harmonies, its core message is deeply anti-human. It pathologizes self-worth, framing autonomy as sin and humility as self-erasure. You're not enough as you are. You need deliverance. But here's the truth. You don't.
Gospel music is worse than trap music. Gospel music is more detrimental to the community than trap music, rap music, rock, modern pop. Let me explain. Most gospel songs is more so about you embodying a person that needs to be saved. You lowering yourself, you minimizing yourself, and you searching for external validation. Whereas in this hyper-Christian gospel world, you're demonizing something that's a part of you. And by demonizing your shadow or your undesirable traits, the part of you that you do not like, you're avoiding accountability. Keep in mind, your subconscious is easily influenced by music because of repetition, rhythm, emotion. So when you listen to these songs and it's changing who you are subconsciously, it's actually changing your entire identity.
I found the points raised in these videos to be an interesting topic of discussion because words cast spells and sound is energy in motion. And when you combine words with music, you get a potent, energetic combination that can elicit strong emotions and chills in the body. And this is known as frisson, a psychophysiological response to rewarding stimuli. And that can include music, films, stories, people, photos, and rituals that often induce a pleasurable or otherwise positively valenced affective state. Think of those videos you see in churches where people are shaking, jumping up and down and speaking in tongues because they have supposedly caught the Holy Ghost. Given this knowledge and the ongoing influence of gospel music, Christianity, and the Black church, it got me wondering, have we been singing ourselves into a perpetual state of oppression? In researching for this episode, I came across the PBS documentary series, The Black Church, Our Story, Our Song, which was hosted and produced by Henry Louis Gates Jr. And let me tell you, this series was 4 hours long and comprehensive. It traced the origins of the Black church from the secretive praise houses founded by slaves during the antebellum period, right up through the Black Lives Matter movement of the 2010s. I've linked both parts of the documentary in the full description, but for our purposes today, I'll provide some TLDR examples that highlight how music and the church shaped the Black American narrative. Sorrow songs was a term coined by W.E.B. Du Bois to describe the spirituals that were sung by enslaved people on America's southern plantations. These songs, often influenced by biblical stories, rooted in themes of deliverance, justice, and freedom, express the hardships of slavery, and they sometimes served as coded messages, and they provided a sense of hope and community when slaves sang them during the long hours of toil in the fields. The songs incorporated the popular call and response technique that is part of the West African oral tradition, and that you see in present-day congregations. This is where a pastor or a song leader sings or chants a few lines, and the crowd or congregation repeats the lines or a variation of it in response. Quote, "The songs thus draw upon many of the practices central to the African cultures the slaves had been forced to leave behind, emphasizing the primacy of the spoken word, celebrating verbal improvisation, and encouraging group participation. The spirituals included here were not rigidly codified or authored by a single person. Instead, they are the result of communal authorship and a strong tradition of extemporaneous improvisations." End quote. And that was from the Annenberg Learner. Sorrow songs were usually in a minor scale, which is used to convey melancholy, sadness, and darkness. These songs would evolve to incorporate the verse-chorus structure of European hymns, which the missionaries taught to the slaves. Genres such as the blues ragtime and jazz would evolve out of these spirituals, which added more lyrical and melodic structure, and the gospel genre would emerge as a mixture of all of these elements. Southern planters were originally reluctant to let missionaries convert slaves to Christianity because they worried it could incite rebellions by making the slaves disagreeable to their conditions of enslavement. So there was a compromise. Books like Exodus, which told the story of Moses leading the Israelites to freedom. Passages from Leviticus and Deuteronomy, which place regulations around enslavement. And the entire book of Revelations, which promoted a vision for a new earth and an end to suffering, were removed. While the typical Protestant Bible contained about 66 books, the Slave Bible, by contrast, was selectively edited down to parts of about 14 books. Passages such as Ephesians chapter 6 verse 5, which says, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ," were left in to instill a culture of docility and obedience. Dr. Yolanda Pierce from Howard University explained how Christianity served as a survival mechanism for the enslaved.
African Americans adopted Christianity, but I also think they adapted Christianity. They made it their own. They created it so that it could provide for them something that was nurturing, something that provided catharsis, something that provided hope.
After emancipation and the end of the Civil War in 1865, Black Americans began migrating from southern states to northern cities like Chicago, Detroit, and New York en masse to escape continued persecution by hate groups such as the KKK and sharecropping conditions that were tantamount to slavery. With this great migration, they carried with them the songs and religious practices that had sustained them on the plantation. During the civil rights movement of the 1960s, gospel music and artists were integral to fundraising for the movement. Singers like Mahalia Jackson performed in support of causes like the Montgomery bus boycott and at the March on Washington, where Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. The Freedom Singers, who were the choir of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, performed songs from gospel and congregational hymns by switching out some of the words to tie the songs back into the theme of freedom. The gospel song "We Shall Overcome," which is a hymn believed to have been originally composed by Charles Albert Tindley, became the unofficial anthem of the movement. Wait. Stick a pin. Let's see here. I see Monday, I see Tuesday, Wednesday. These are standard. I see Valentine's Day, President's Day, Family Day. Oh damn, there was even a National Pancake Day. I missed that one. But I do not see someday. And that brings me to the heart of the matter and our present day situation. I came across a powerful image from one of the Black Lives Matter protests throughout the 2010s, where a protester was holding up a sign that said, "My grandmother marched for this. And here, 63 years later, I am marching too." And that image immediately made me think of historical footage that I'd seen from the civil rights protests, where people were marching and singing, "We shall overcome someday." Those two seemingly innocuous words, someday, have got to be the most dangerous word pairing in the English language. And we're going to use them as an example to get into some identity and architecture work to understand why. Semantics matters because words, language, whether through thought or speech, construct the world around us and our experience in it. Now, if any of you are on the manifestation, Neville Goddard, quantum physics side of social media, you will understand why specificity is key if you desire to take something from thought to physical matter. And when you are calling in a desire, a wish, a manifestation, proclaiming something, being specific about what you are calling in is a requirement for receiving that very thing. When you take the declarative sentence, "We shall overcome," it should have ended right there with an exclamation point. Powerful, decisive. It gives the energy of, this what we gonna do by any means necessary. But instead, the caveat "someday" was added, completely disarming and pacifying the original sentence. So now it gives the energy of, we shall overcome. Maybe? Probably? Hopefully? Well, I don't know. You've heard the saying, a goal without a plan or a deadline is just a wish. So as I've been thinking about everything going on with the current state of the world, I said, you know what? Black folks need to get hella specific about liberation, because someday is exactly what we got. So we are overcoming today. Matter of fact, we are overcoming right TF now.
You know, the more I think about Christianity, the more I get to thinking about how those colonizers really did a job on us black folks here in America specifically, and across the other continents and in Africa. Little children little children always think that they're special, but then Christianity beats that out of you. You ain't nothing but filthy rags. And then you slowly, over time, subconsciously, you forget that you're special, and you start to believe that you are just filthy rags.
If you was even caught trying to read or write as a slave, oftentimes you got extorted, abused, neglected, or even too unalive. They ain't play that. What you mean you gonna learn how to read and write? Because if you learn how to read and write, they already knew they'd become educated. You'll realize that a lot of this is bullshit. So we're going to keep y'all literate. We're going to make sure that you don't read and write. You don't have access to nothing. But the time slaves actually start learning how to read and write, guess what they got presented? Here's the Bible. You don't know the power of your calling. You don't know the power of your intuition. They did not want you to know that. And that connects so deeply with slavery because they kept slaves distracted so much so that they won't know the truth. They won't know the truth about the systems that was set in place to keep them bounded. So by the time they started to read, we already have a system for you.
If churches were good for the black community, the U.S. government wouldn't allow us to have it. Okay, now wait. All of my black Christians, all of my, but the Lord said, but the Bible said, but I love this, I love that. Listen, what are in black neighborhoods? We're over-policed. We got police officers everywhere. Are those good for us? No. We got the stores that sell drinking. We got 7-Elevens every single corner. Are those good for us? Do we have grocery stores with fresh groceries on every single corner? No. Most food deserts are in black neighborhoods. At 1 or 2 schools, and they usually don't have the materials that they need to help our children. But you know what is on every black neighborhood corner? A church.
Something that I think we need to start talking about is how white worship is ingrained within African Christianity. Although Christianity was in some small sections of Africa like Ethiopia and North Africa before Europeans came, for the vast majority of African people, Christianity came through colonialism, and thus it is tinged with colonial rhetoric, right? Like if we look at the depictions of any saint or Jesus or just any biblical figure within African churches, it is always a white person. It's a white man with blonde hair, blue eyes. Just, it looks like the colonizers, right? So that really puts the African mind that any European person, any colonizer is of the same race as that biblical hero. So those that will bring them salvation look exactly the same as the colonizers. That already gives us this dual consciousness view that, oh, maybe the colonizer is God himself. If you go anywhere within the African continent, many people tell you, oh, African people are cursed, the curse of Ham, which is why we are blackened race. I know the white people have to bring us Christianity, civilization, all that kind of stuff to try and help us emancipate ourselves. And that's born from religion. We cannot progress as a society and take Africa anywhere progressive if people are maintaining these regressive views around religion and around the position of black people within society.
I've been seeing more and more videos like the ones I've shared with you throughout the episode, with black folks across the diaspora questioning Christianity. Yet despite the legacy of slavery and colonization, black folks are still some of the most ardent followers, especially black women. In a lot of ways, Christianity is to black folks what cheese is to would-be vegans. And look, my goal here isn't to bash specific churches, congregations, or incite some kind of intra-community conflict. Because watching the PBS documentary gave me a level of respect for the impact and legacy of the black church specifically. The praise houses, churches, congregations, and communities formed during the antebellum and Reconstruction periods were a source of refuge and hope that provided something tangible with which to survive everyday life. And from that spirituality, those churches and those congregations arose music genres that are distinctly Black American and which have left an indelible mark on the music industry and the world. As Black Americans arrived in northern cities during the Great Migration, Black churches were often the first place to welcome them, providing access to a community and social support services that northern cities, quite frankly, didn't care to help the new arrivals with, and with which many Black churches and their congregations continue to provide that kind of support to this day. But oftentimes the relationships, beliefs, and infrastructure formed out of necessity and survival mode in the short term are the very things that will keep you there permanently. Community and social support systems can and should be built without the parameters of religion. You don't need a God, the Bible, or any kind of external entity to instruct you to do the right thing or to be a decent human being. You just need to do the right thing and be a decent human being. Enslaved populations found solace in the Bible because Jesus' story reflected their own experience of suffering and persecution, and for many it provided a sense of inner dignity and hope for eventual deliverance from bondage. But ultimately, they were identifying with a story that was selectively edited and literally handed to them by the oppressor. Black folks survived chattel slavery and formal colonialism. And if we're going to survive the current iterations of those systems and truly reach collective liberation and a state of collective thriving, we need to identify with a new story. What I'm hoping you leave this video understanding is that in order to make a full identity shift, you have to fundamentally change your inner state of being. Your mindset, your speech, your way of carrying yourself, your habits, your routines, your very beliefs. I think one has to ask the question, can you fully embody the identity of a liberated Black human being while still subscribing to the religion of the oppressor? And can you embody the identity of a liberated Black human being if you still walk the walk, talk the talk, and sing the songs of the enslaved? Freedom, real freedom, isn't something that can be granted through policies and proclamations. Real freedom? That's an inside job. That's why a man housed in solitary confinement of a maximum security prison can be freer than all of the prison guards, support staff, and warden combined. It is crucial to be mindful of the words, language, and music that we are using to give voice to the Black experience. I think it can be difficult to find a balance because, on the one hand, we need to document our lived experience and our own stories, especially when there are forces and entities out there actively trying to erase Black history. But in an effort to document reality, one mustn't get lost in overly identifying with the narrative of the present struggles. This brings me back to the Carter G. Woodson quote from the beginning of the video, because there's one narrative that I'd like to put an end to today. You know the one I'm talking about. The narrative that Black folks have to work twice as hard for half as much. I've never heard a white person say this out loud. Yet somehow this narrative has been repeated from generation to generation. And while I think adults repeat this statement to children with the mindset that they're preparing them for the harsh realities of life, I believe what this kind of messaging does is leave children anxiety-ridden and depression-prone, constantly bracing for life, waiting for the other shoe to drop or to have the rug pulled out from under you. White narcissism no longer needs to hand Black folks direct tools like the Bible for its work to be done, because we've created a whole generational communications infrastructure to ensure the narratives of struggle, persecution, docility, and obedience continue to be delivered without fail. Well, return all of it to sender. Right TF now. It is time for new messaging. Now is when we must use our imaginations, our voices, our language, and our music to tell new stories about the Black experience so we can call in new, desirable realities. As someone who spent my early childhood in Barbados and then my teenaged and early adulthood years in the US and now live in Canada, I'm invested in this work because I've lived the Black experience from multiple sides of the diaspora. And I've experienced that it's the same story, just in different fonts. And I have to say that the videos that I've shared throughout this episode and the online discourse of my Black American brothers and sisters post-November 2024 give me hope that collectively we have already begun intentionally reauthoring the narrative of the future. Now, Black Americans, I don't know if you all noticed the change on your end, but I realized as I scrolled through comments that November, not one person said God or Jesus said to sit down. Everyone was on the same page regarding who delivered that message. I said, oh yeah, y'all overcoming. We overcoming. Right TF now. That concludes this Black History Month episode of the Sound Continuum, and I'm going to leave you with some food for thought questions. What are your words giving voice to? What narratives are you authoring? What future are you architecting? This is the part of the video where I would normally invite you to share some of the things and insights that come to mind based on those questions. But since the comment section is open to everybody, I'll leave it up to your discretion what you decide to share. If you'd like to go deeper with your own research, you'll find links in the description to all the source materials referenced in this episode. If you're interested in working with sound more intentionally, you can find links in the description to learn more about sonic identity architecture and home frequency, my platform for sound-based reflection, healing, and embodiment. You can support this work by sharing this episode, liking the video, and subscribing to the channel. I'm going to leave you with this final message. Stop outsourcing your power and trust in your own inherent divinity. And remember to stay tuned, stay present, and listen for what's amplified. TTYL.